You don't remember it, but when you emerged from your mother's womb, I picked you up, held you in my hand, and looked at your face. You had your finger by the side of your cheek, and you looked very, very wise, like my old best friend. Angelina's arrival filled John with more joy than his Oscar nomination for his role in Midnight Cowboy, or his success in Deliverance.
Looks good. Looks good.
But it unfortunately failed to save his marriage. Her mother hoped that a second child would return her husband's affections, but Voight was famous for his love affairs. A year after their baby arrived, the actor began dallying with the young Stacy Pickren, his co-star from the drama Coming Home.
It's open.
Hi.
Shortly, Marceline and John divorced. Meanwhile, the film not only gifted him with a girlfriend, but also with the first Oscar of his career.
John Voight is coming home!
While her father basked in the spotlight and rubbed elbows with celebrities at parties, her mother was raising their two children. Angelina had just turned 1, while her older brother James had just become potty trained. John spent time with his children, but when a few years later, Marceline moved to New York, their meetings became drastically less. Angie and James saw their father only when he flew in for premieres or took them to the film sets if they were close by. These moments caused the children to fall in love with cinema. The final scene of The Champ was a little hard for them. They both started weeping. The last scene was very unsettling. I had to take them in my arms and explain that Daddy was just acting, that he wasn't dead, that he was still here with them. Despite this scare, Angelina was enamored by the film set, and she started to make sets in her own house. The little girl would put on her mother's clothes and makeup and do shows while her brother would film her on camera. The family was charmed by her talent, and they saw that the girl was born to be on the big screen. The first time Angie appeared on the screen was with her father.
Your daddy's he's a nice man.
You are too.
Her debut was in the comedy Lookin' to Get Out, where John was not only the lead actor, but also helped to write the screenplay. Because of his role in the production, the film featured both his daughter and his ex-wife.
You're very charming.
Oh, thank you very much.
This is the only movie made in Hollywood which included the real father, mother, and child. Despite the fact that filming finished at the end of 1980, the reel made it to theaters only 2 years later. The little cutie had just turned 7, and her character, as well as her unusual preferences, began to shine through. Instead of a fluffy pet, she preferred a lizard and a snake, and her first crush was Mr. Spock.
Fascinating.
Dreams of acting were replaced with those of becoming a vampire.
I do detect human blood.
Which in a few years gave way to the dream of opening a funeral home. The girl had been struck by her grandfather's funeral, where she was shocked to see a crowd of sad people. Angie believed that parting with a loved one should be a celebration of their life, not a depressing gathering of despondency.
I'm not scared of death, which makes people think I'm dark, when in fact I'm positive.
Later, Angelina was swept away by a new wave, hormones. In kindergarten, she became a member of a group called the Kissy Girls.
We would chase boys around and kiss them a lot. It involved giving them love bites, and they would scream. Then a few of the boys stopped and started taking their clothes off, and I got into trouble a lot.
Similar antics, despite seeming entertaining, continued with unenviable regularity. Marceline returned to Los Angeles when Angelina turned 11. Her father helped her to get into a prestigious school where Hollywood's richest children were educated. Angie did not fit into the elite cliques. Her classmates wore clothes from expensive malls and went to parties every weekend, parties to which Angelina was not invited. Unsurprisingly, the girl shopped in thrift stores, and her usual appearance, complete with braces, caused her to be constantly teased. She recalls this time in her life as a time of extreme contrasts. One day, Angie was being teased at school, and the next, she was going to the Oscars with her father.
Now, is this your first Academy Award? Yeah.
I'd like to say hello.
That's a gorgeous dress.
At her mother's insistence, the girl tried her hand at modeling and was, unfortunately, unsuccessful. Her wardrobe slowly filled with punk outfits, and the reputation of an outsider latched onto her. Instead of friends, she attracted insomnia and nervous breakdowns, which quickly turned to scars. Not figuratively, she literally collected knives and was prone to using them.
I went to the Renaissance Fair when I was a little girl, and there were all these knives. There's something really beautiful and traditional about them. Different countries have different weapons and blades, and there's something beautiful about them to me. So I began collecting knives. I've collected weapons since I was a little girl.
Children avoided Angie, and the teachers couldn't seem to find an approach to the little rebel. A few months later, she ended up in the therapist's office. Angelina left the office diagnosed with a tendency to antisocial psychopathy. Marceline wanted to redirect her daughter's energy towards something positive, so she enrolled her in the Lee Strasberg Theater Institute, where she had once attended herself. Lee was a cult personality in Hollywood who had educated James Dean, Robert De Niro, Steve McQueen, Al Pacino, Paul Newman, and Marilyn Monroe, whom he considered his favorite student. The actress felt the same way about her teacher. According to Marilyn's will, 75% of her estate went to Strasberg.
Diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Lee taught using the Stanislavski method, which teaches to use one's personal memories, experiences, and emotions in order to act realistically and authentically. Angelina acted in plays and perfected the basics of the acting profession. The theater truly captured the girl. But 2 years later, Angie left the school because she felt that she had enough life experience and memories to act effectively using that method.
I don't care.
And despite the girl's logical reasoning, it's more likely that she left the theater because of a love interest. Angelina's first relationship was like something out of a grotesque erotic horror film. At 14, she brought home her 16-year-old boyfriend. Marceline realized that lecturing her or forbidding her to date would only result in her running away, so she let the couple live with her in their house. Her mother tried to remain in control of her suddenly mature and rebellious daughter, but had to struggle to do it. At this young age, Angelina began living a wild, sexually active life, and still, it wasn't enough for the teen. Later, the actress admitted that she didn't like tender caresses, and in order to reach a real level of intimacy, she would enlist the help of her knife collection.
It was a desperate need to feel. When I was young, I didn't have a self of my own.
The young girl cut herself all over. One day, in a burst of passion, while drawing the letter X on her shoulder, she accidentally cut her vein with a razor blade. She was saved by a team of paramedics, and after she was released from the hospital, Angelina ended things with her boyfriend. When Angie turned 16, she finally developed a friendship with her father. After several pubescent years had passed, she returned to the theater, and John became the future actress's main mentor. The young woman had matured and decided to try a career in modeling again. This time, fate smiled at her. The first few photo shoots brought a small splash of popularity. Then she appeared in a few short films by her brother, who had been studying at the USC School of Cinema Television. 6 months later, Angelina moved to the U.S. fashion capital, New York. The move allowed her to increase her list of job opportunities and be free of her parents' supervision. The young woman was filmed simultaneously in several music videos by the bands The Lemonheads and Meatloaf, and worked on a few shorts made by her newfound New York friends.
Alice, casually smoking, has no intention of telling Viral when his 3 minutes underwater are up.
In 1992, this budding actress with no screen credits got lucky. Angelina was cast as a lead role in a real Hollywood project with a budget of $5 million.
You need money. Money? I got job for you.
The fantasy action Cyborg 2 was a sequel to the popular reel with Jean-Claude Van Damme, which captivated viewers with its post-apocalyptic sets and martial arts. Unfortunately, the viewer's sweetheart and director opted out of the sequel. They were replaced by Michael Schroeder, whose talent was considered questionable even among directors in the B-movie scene. Despite the story being about a sexy cyborg killer who had escaped from a laboratory with her martial arts teacher, Angie was thrilled at the chance to work on a real film.
Oh, Jesus. He's a cyborg.
However, after seeing it thrill was replaced by horror. The picture was filled with out-of-date special effects sprinkled in between awkwardly choreographed fight scenes and mediocre acting.
What? What's going on?
The studio hid its shame by deciding to not release the movie. The sequel to Cyborg was released on VHS, not as a separate film, but as an add-on to the first installment. To this day, the reel is considered the worst in Angelina's career.
I thought it would be beautiful.
At the time, she thought that the failure would be fatal, and for a year afterward, she turned down all auditions. Nevertheless, the film became famous for one thing. It was the first movie featuring the young woman under her stage name. She dropped her father's last name and replaced it with her middle name. That's how the world was introduced to Angelina Jolie. It was only in 1995 that the 21-year-old actress once again appeared in a movie. The theme of technology shadowed Jolie here too, though instead of the future, the picture featured computers of the present time. The crime comedy Hackers told a story of some high schoolers who break into the forbidden server of an industrial corporation, where Angelina shared the screen with the talented British actor Johnny Lee Miller.
I don't like this.
Preparation for shooting included trips to hackers' lairs, where the actors were shown how servers are broken into in real life.
Kill the Gibson.
Roger that.
Ironically, in the film, when scenes showed the insides of the computer, they used real models because the director thought computer graphics looked too fake. While filming, Miller and Jolie developed their romance, and the actors didn't have to pretend in front of the camera. However, after they finished, Angelina declared that she wasn't ready for a serious relationship, though Johnny seemed to take that as more of a challenge and continued to follow the actress everywhere.
You're pretty good.
Unfortunately, the second film in Angie's career was also a bust. They invested $20 million in Hackers, but the box office brought in only half of that sum. The critics were not very supportive either, as they bashed the main character's lack of depth, the directing, and the talent of the acting ensemble.
It's taking forever and a day to figure out. Make some coffee.
The young actress had learned from her previous experience, and this time, she weathered the scathing reviews much more calmly. She didn't stop going to auditions. Actually, quite the opposite. She even appeared in 2 more films in 1996. In the movie Love Is All There Is, Jolie tried herself in a comedic role for the first time. The story of 2 feuding families whose children fall in love on the stage of an amateur theater, where they are putting on Romeo and Juliet, is a Shakespearean comedy, served up in a humorous tone.
We love each other very deeply. And she's through living a lie to make her parents happy.
And that is why we slept together.
That year turned out to be a popular one for the retelling of that particular story. Baz Luhrmann's drama jump-started Leonardo DiCaprio's career and won over the hearts of millions of fans. But Angelina was not so fortunate. The film's success was aptly reflected in its box office profits. Making $60,000 after the release is a failure.
I don't raise my daughter for this. I'm going to pull the curtain.
And in addition, Angie once more didn't impress the critics. This was turning into a habit.
Take it out. They don't like me for you.
They don't like anyone for me.
The second reel of that year was the drama Foxfire, where the actress got to play the independent and stubborn Legs.
Come on, Legs! If it were that important to you, you'd come get it. I want to puke! Come on! Oh.
The film tells of the complex relationships between teens and of first loves, and disillusionment experienced by a group of girlfriends. During this film, Jolie met her new flame. Angelina said that she was used to giving all of herself to her characters, which is why, while playing the role of a gruff rebel girl in a leather jacket and jeans, she got so used to Legs that she didn't notice herself falling in love with her co-star, Jenny Shimizu. Jenny was a proclaimed lesbian, and 10 years later would maintain that that was the beginning of a long affair between the woman, though she published a retraction of her words soon after.
I'm going to tickle you to death. Do you understand me? Huh?
Yes, ma'am.
Whatever may be hiding in this story, a few months later, it came to an end. In that same year, 1996, Angelina and Johnny Lee Miller reunited, and shortly after had a wedding.
We didn't have a big white wedding. We had a small black wedding.
Angelina and Johnny did not read vows at the altar or wear a dress and tuxedo. The couple went to their ceremony in leather pants and white dress shirts. They wrote each other's names on their backs in blood, and instead of rings, pricked each other's fingers and bound themselves with a bloody oath of eternal love. The eternal love lasted a little over a year, after which Jolie divorced Lee Miller. Meanwhile, Foxfire joined the list of the actress's unsuccessful film credits. This string of failures caused Angelina to fall into depression, which she nursed with the help of drugs. Her next movies had similar fates, and Jolie once again wanted to leave the acting profession behind. It all began with the release of the crime thriller Playing God, where she starred opposite David Duchovny.
It's been nice to actually meet you, Doctor.
The picture was filmed in '95, but test previews threw viewers into confusion. Because of the complex narrative and multiple holes in the plot, the film was redirected for further editing, which continued for 2 years. The studio anticipated defeat and decided to attract audiences with a sly plan. The trailer was filled with the naked bodies of Jolie and Duchovny, but these scenes were never added into the movie.
What?
The critics and the viewers showed their contempt for this deceit with poor ticket sales and scathing reviews. This result was a hit for Duchovny's reputation, which was just beginning to gather momentum thanks to the success of The X-Files.
I'm just basically always looking for a new way to fuck up.
For Angelina, this bad year just got worse when the big screen was simultaneously graced with the black comedy Mojave Moon, which received similar reviews and flopped at the box office.
Oh, look at that.
Critics did not attack the actress directly, but she had record-breaking bad luck with the production she was in.
You're in show business, right?
Well, if you call selling cars show business.
The only silver lining was shooting a Rolling Stones clip where she walked around the streets of New York in just her lingerie. The song became a top 20 hit that year, and Angelina was again remembered by viewers only thanks to her natural beauty. Jolie broke the chain in bad events when she agreed to act in the historical TV movie True Women.
But I don't want to be a man. I like being a woman. But a woman who can vote.
The insubordinate and willful image of Georgia suited Angie, and for the first time, the camera did not exploit her sexuality.
Well, I just don't care.
Short shorts and form-fitting jeans were exchanged for long, modest dresses, and the critics' wrath exchanged for unfamiliar praise.
Yes.
Angelina had found her stride and increased her success with another TV project.
Well, this is my first time at a national political convention as the wife of a candidate.
The two-part biographical drama George Wallace told of a scandalous governor of the state of Alabama and shed light on the subject of racism in the period between the 50s and the 70s.
Just been elected governor again now, and so you got that base, and you named a lot of blacks to state positions, so they can't throw that old race thing at you again.
The lead role was played by Gary Sinise, whose part in Forrest Gump and Apollo 13 made him an actor of the highest category, and the project was directed by John Frankenheimer, who made the cult drama The Manchurian Candidate. Acting in the company of so many stars allowed Jolie to explore new horizons of her talent, which the public would soon appreciate.
I even got a call from a record company about doing an album of country ballads. You believe that?
Then she took part in a crime drama, Hell's Kitchen, which was about the drugs, poverty, and betrayals surrounding a dangerous crime-filled neighborhood in Manhattan.
What are you talking about?
Alongside Rosanna Arquette and William Forsythe, Jolie once again gave a compelling performance, but the picture went largely unnoticed. On its first day, it made $11,000 at the box office, though its budget was $6 million. The studio decided not to wait for negative reviews, took it out of the theaters, and released it directly on tape. However, this little hitch did not stop her. Television producers had already noticed her, so it wasn't surprising that in the same year, she received an offer to shoot a picture for HBO.
Next on HBO.
The channel is known for its big-budget projects, which are just as good as anything you see at the movie theater. This time, the producers invested their money in the biography of the very popular model Gia Karanji, whose life and successful career were cut short because of an addiction to hard drugs. The director, Michael Christopher, saw in Angelina the perfect candidate for the lead role, but the actress was scared by the uncanny similarity between her and the heroine, and for a long time refused to take the part.
Gia has enough similarities to me that I figured this would either be a purge of all my demons or it was really going to mess with me.
The director was overjoyed when Angie decided to do battle with her inner demons, and after much convincing, agreed to play Gia.
Work. You have a gift. Use it. Life will be there later.
While preparing for the role, the actress met with the model's close friends and studied her diaries, which were used as a basis for the screenplay. Jolie refused to communicate with her family and remained completely isolated the whole time the film was shooting. The result of her approach is evident in every scene.
There, Gia. Just fuck the rest of it, call me Gia. Do you think you can remember that? Honey?
Karanji is depicted with eerie accuracy, and a few of the scenes even eclipsed the screen adaptation of Train Spotting featuring her husband a year earlier. The realism, cruelty, and despair of the picture are striking. Through the tragic story of young Gia, the creators showed the backstage of the 80s, where behind the bright outfits and camera flashes, there hid thousands of broken lives. By the end of the filming process, Angelina felt only exhausted and depleted.
I felt like I'd given everything I had, and I couldn't imagine what else was in me.
Is there
As the actress feared, using the Stanislavski method exacerbated her personal problems. She felt like she had given the camera everything and had nothing left to offer the viewer. She pushed her loved ones away once again and set off into the unknown. The closing scenes of Gia, for which Angie had to shave her head, helped her to get lost in the crowd. For a few months, she traveled America spending the night in roadside motels, and then headed to New York, where she started studying directing and screenwriting at a university. This attempt to outrun her depression didn't help, and by December of 1997, she dropped out. At that same time, George Wallace was nominated for 7 Emmys, and at the beginning of '98, the picture won a Golden Globe for Best TV Film. It was the nomination for this prestigious film award that returned Angelina her confidence. She would remember that evening for the rest of her life, since in addition to the success of her colleagues, she also celebrated a personal victory when she won the nomination for Best Supporting Actress.
Is Angelina Jolie. George Wallace.
In her acceptance speech, she thanked the director, who created a wonderful atmosphere on set, and helped the actress who had lost all hope of success believe in her own talent once again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Do you like our work? Let us know with your like and comment. Push that subscribe button and share with your friends. If you want to support the project financially, become our sponsor on Patreon or YouTube sponsorship. Thank you.